They need the lyric video. Not the introduction, the lyric.
There we go.
Well, that's a tough act to follow, but we're going to spend the next little bit of time talking about our time in Ecuador, as Richard mentioned. Myself and Tammy Sales and Richard spent, I guess, 9 days in country in an area called Chucuiti, Ecuador, which is, if you're looking at a map, closer to Colombia, on that region. That was with an organization called ICP, or International Church Planners. And so I'm going to spend a little bit of time telling you about that and what we did there, and then Tammy and Richard will share as well. So International Church Planners, they'll admit, is almost not quite the name that they should have. While that is a goal, the primary goal is making disciples and multiplying disciples. And we got to see that firsthand over the course of the week. Basically, out of our 3, there was 15 other people with us, and we spent that time doing both men's training and discipleship, women's training and discipleship, a children's training and Bible study during the day and in the afternoons. And along with that, there was a few people doing medical needs and consultations, and a few guys doing construction projects. And so I'll talk a bit more about what I did personally, since that's my story, and so to hear more about that as well. I went along with this group to help with the children's area, and so during the daytime we were at a school, and then in the afternoons we spent about 15 minutes from our hotel went to a park and did the same Bible story, craft, and memory verse, basically. This is a picture at this school. Some of those we did a rotation basically, and so our group went to 4 different classes, and the other group went to 4 classes, and each class had anywhere between 20 and 40 students in it. So you never knew quite what to expect size-wise, but some of those we ended up just meeting in a open gymnasium type area. in other areas, in other classes we met in the classroom. And so we just had to be ready to adapt and to change as needed. But so that ranged from ages 4 all the way up to the oldest group that I spoke with were they're 13 and 14-year-olds. And so it was just a neat experience to do that. These kids, it's considered a private school, and it's shared on the same compound as a church. And the first picture that you saw was actually in the church building that you'll see more of later, because Richard spent most of his time there talking to the men. So the way this was set up basically is almost bringing in a Bible club to the school. And so we would do a Bible story, and all these were related. They built on one another. So we talked about how God made us, He sees us, He knows us, and going into a relationship with God from that Jesus talks to us and we can respond. And so we presented the story and then challenged these kids with memory verses each day. That was probably the most encouraging for me, was by the end of the week we had kids that could just spout them out, which I don't know about you guys, but language barriers are tough for me. It's hard when you don't speak the language, but by the end of the week you kind of pick up more of the phrases. So I think Tammy and I both could say that we probably know the verses in Spanish by now after saying them over and over again. But anyhow, so the morning time was very busy, quick rotation. After breakfast, we would head to the school and be there until lunchtime. We did stay at a hotel, which was nice. I will brag for a moment and say that it had hot water and air conditioning, and only a few of you understand how big of a deal that is. And so that was nice. It was probably about a 5-minute walk from the hotel to the school. And then Dallas is going to go to the next picture. To the park, it was a little bit farther. Each day, well, Tammy's laughing at me. The first day to the park, that Monday afternoon, the pastor of the church just agreed to walk us there, because obviously we didn't know where we were going. And he took us what my dad would call the scenic route. It was probably, a 20, 30-minute walk the first day, but we quickly discovered that was not the fastest route, and so by the end of the week it was probably just a 10-minute walk, I would say. But anyhow, kind of a cool thing about this park is that originally it was set up for us to do this park ministry in a plaza that was literally across the street from our hotel. This was a nice area with big shaded gazebos and just a nice spot to do it in. It's right in the center of kind of a busy location, so I figured we'd bring in a lot of people. Well, we get there, and it turns out that the mayor, or whoever the equivalent is in Ecuador, did not approve it and would not let us use the plaza. And so they go to the church and we ask them, okay, what's our next option? They say, oh, there's this park down the road. So that's where we ended up at. And because of that change in location, we got to see kids that we probably would not have seen if we were right there by the hotel. And so it kind of opened a different door of ministry, which was really exciting and neat. At the Bible Club in the park, we saw somewhere between 45 and 60 kids every evening. And as you can see, there's nowhere to sit, there's no shade. They just sat on the floor, and we used a big fountain to block the sun. So the kids sat in this little section, squished it together, so they were all in the shade with it. So we made it work, and it was a great time. A lot of intentional relationships were established during that. While the children's team were working with the kids, there was a few adults on the sides watching for parents. And as soon as they would come up and stand and kind of watch around, watch what we were doing, and once they felt comfortable, these other adults on standby would just go and talk to them, talk about the gospel, see where they stood spiritually. We're very intentional in that time. And so it was really neat. We got to build a lot of great relationships during that time. The park was just a great chance to minister to the community and to see or really understand where these people stood spiritually. As the week progressed, we kind of built more relationships, and one of the parents had noticed that we were walking all this distance, carrying all of our goodies for the day in tow, and turns out one of them drove what's called a chiva. Don't ask me what that is. I compared it, have you seen the duck in Hot Springs, the trolley duck thing with the open air? Yeah, it's like an open air bus. And so this parent, she offered her husband's chiva to come and get us from the hotel and drive us to the park one day. We're like, because it's Thursday, we're hot, we're tired, it's a long walk, Well, it turns out Thursday, we had this torrential downpour. It hadn't rained hardly at all the whole week. And then Thursday, the day that we had this assigned transportation, it starts raining. Well, obviously there's no covering at this park, so if it keeps raining, we can't do what we plan to do. And so while we still load up on this Chiva, we're praying on the way there. Okay, God, well, if you want us to be here, if you want us to do this today, then you're going to have to stop the rain because we can't do it otherwise. And, sometimes God just does cool stuff. And this is one of those cool things. We pull up to the park, have our nice little drive through the rain, squished in the middle so we don't get wet. And right as we're pulling up to the park, the rain stops. And we did have to adjust a little, but we were able to do the same routine on that Thursday. And so while rain doesn't sound like a big deal to us, that would have changed our entire day with the kids at the park. And so that was just God saying, hey, I'm still here, I'm still faithful, and I've got a plan in this. And so that was great. Over the course of the week, obviously with 18 people, you have to be prepared for anything. You never know who's going to butt heads or who's going to have problems or get sick or anything else. But I have to say, I've been to, I don't even know how many foreign trips anymore. I've been a lot of places and worked with a lot of teams and organizations. But there was 18 of us, and everybody worked together beautifully. I think of one of our main texts that we go to when we go on trips to encourage unity is Philippians 2. And Paul starts off saying, if you have any encouragement from being with Christ, if any comfort from his love, if any fellowship with the Spirit, if any tenderness and compassion, then make my joy complete by being like-minded. And this is a like-minded team. They all had the desire to see these people come to know the Lord and to serve him, to grow in him. And it was just awesome. It was a privilege to work with these people this week, not just the 18, but with ICP. What they're doing there is awesome. They're doing right, they're doing well, which is exciting to see and to be a part of. And so I was just really encouraged by the week. I'm thankful for you as a church that send people out and are willing to do that. And it was a good time. And so anyhow, I don't want to give you all the details, but there's one more picture that I've got pulled up for my little spill. You probably can't tell what those are, but those are handmade desks that a couple of our guys, our construction guys, did. Now, while everybody kind of came onto this team with a specific task, whether that be construction or children or men's or women's or evangelism even, these two guys kind of floated around and did everything. Their names are Kevin and Bobby. I can hear his laugh still. Anyways, these two guys floated around and helped with whatever was needed each day, and we're just super encouraging, but they got to really get down and dirty and get stuff done. I don't know if you've ever seen tools in other countries, but usually they don't have the same safety precautions and standards that they do in the U.S. So they all still have all 10 fingers and toes, and that's good. But the school that we helped with, I'm sure one of either Richard or Tammy may talk more about it, is kind of in a stressful situation. The government, in order to do a private school, has very high standards and restrictions and expectations. And so the director that we worked with each day, she was very stressed. You could tell from just everything going on in her life and in her job requirements. And so part of that was a need for more desks. And so while we're there to meet spiritual needs, it was nice to be able to meet a physical need as well while we were there. So anyways, I'm going to let Tammy come on up and share a little bit more about what we did there.
Well, Wesley asked me yesterday what order I ordered, the other day, what order I wanted my pictures in, and so they're probably going to be wrong. I apologize for that, because I made the plans and then God changed them. Matthew 28:19-20 says, "Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I commanded you. And lo, I am with you always, even until the end of the age." A lot of times we stop at the baptizing part and we don't continue with the rest of it. There was a team of 15 plus 3 translators. I want to talk to you today about serving and the reasons you serve and the reasons you don't serve. 10 of this team were over 45, 9 were over 55, 4 were over 60, and 1 was over 80. She's my hero. Joshua 22:5 says, "Only be very careful to observe the commandment and the law which Moses, the servant of the Lord, commanded you, to love the Lord your God and walk in all his ways and to keep his commandments, hold fast to him and serve him with all your heart and with all your soul. So what is your reason for not serving? Are you too old? Do you think you're too old to serve? Monica. Miss Monica was from Germany. She was 81 years old, and she had been on 21 mission trips. I don't know where Miss Monica's picture is in there.
Is that it?
She had been to Moldova 9 times.
That's her.
She had been to places where there was no water, no creature comforts. They had like a pan of water to wash out their clothes in for a 2-week time period, no showers for 2 weeks. She told a story about arriving in Moldova one time, and they were standing around with the team, and they were laughing at these old World War II planes that were over to the side of the runway, and then they saw their luggage going towards these World War II planes. And so they realized they're going to be on these planes. And they get on these planes. Not everyone had a seat, even the pilot who sat on a crate. And they told the team, normally we have 4 propellers, today we only have 3. And so their thoughts were, we're going to land in one place, either heaven or Moldova, but either way is fine. And her mantra, which I love, I can hear it ringing in my ear, is, we can't complain. She says, we are missionaries. And so Wesley and I, we would take that each day as it would be so hot. The heat index was 105, and 108, 12. And we would think, we are missionaries, and we are not truly suffering for Christ, not like the missionaries in the Bible do. So we can suck it up. The next one is, I don't speak the language. Bobby. Bobby was the gentleman that you saw the picture of with the desks. And there's a picture of him. When the women would come to wait to speak to the doctor, they would sit on a bench outside the doctor's office, which was a small room. And Bobby would sit there, and he had this little pad like the ones that we take on personal evangelism. And he had sat down with a couple of the different interpreters, and he had written down, it was so funny, because Bobby, in his own terms, is a hillbilly kid from Mississippi. And they tease, and they say that they would have to have someone to translate him to the translator, so that the translator could understand what he was saying. But he would write down and ask, like spelling, how to ask someone if they knew Christ. And then he would take it and he would write it phonetically so that he knew what he was saying. And he had a Bible tract in English and a Bible tract in Spanish. And he would ask these women, reading from his little, hey, Sue, it was so sweet to watch him love Jesus so much that he would not let anything be a barrier to him sharing the gospel. And one of the stories that was so beautiful to me is him meeting a woman at the park, leading her to the Lord, inviting her to come the next day to be evaluated by the doctor, and then writing her name down wrong. And when someone came the next day, he went to her and said, hey, did you tell your friend that you learned about the Lord? And she just looked at him, and he realized that it was the wrong woman. But then he proceeded to speak with her, and in the end led her to the Lord. So there are no barriers except the ones that we have ourselves. Some people say, well, I don't have a special talent. I remember one of our sweet ladies that goes to church here saying that she didn't feel like she had something to share, a talent, or a special thing that she could do or teach. And my question there is, what does it take to show a child love? What does it take to show someone what the love of Jesus looks like? What does it take to make a child laugh or smile? Because Jesus' love overflows. It comes out of us, and that's what they need to see. That's what they need to begin to understand the love of Jesus, is to see the love of Jesus. And let's see, 1 Peter 4:10 says, as each one of you has received a special gift. So that tells us whether we think we have it or not, we have it. Employ it in serving one another, meaning use it, don't waste it. Be good stewards of the manifold grace of God. And so you have it, whether you think you do or not. God has given you one, and you are commanded to use it to show the love and the grace of Christ. Are you weary from serving or from trials? This is a tough one for me because I'm walking through some trials. 1 Samuel 12:24 says, only fear the Lord and serve him in truth with all your heart. For consider what great things he has done for you. So while you're walking in these valleys, we cannot forget the blessings that he has given us. We learn from Job, when faced with the almighty sovereignty of God, he said, behold, I am insignificant. What can I reply to you? I lay my hand on my mouth. So when you're serving him, you draw your joy in the most difficult times from serving the Lord. Thank you for allowing me to be a servant of the Lord.
Thank you, Wesley and Tammy. That gentleman, Bobby, who led a couple of ladies to the Lord, was quite a card. We have, you know, every church needs somebody who can just see the humor in what's going on, you know. Bobby was at his church back in Mississippi. I'm sure he's that guy. You know, we've got at least one of those around here. I don't want to embarrass him, so I won't say Jackie's name, but you know, we do have somebody like that at Grace Baptist Church. But it's great to have people around who see the humor and everything. And Bobby also was a voracious eater. Now, I got to tell you, one of the things that is a barrier for me going to other places is food, because I take food very seriously. Okay? Food is, we're only going to get to eat a certain number of times before we die, all right? And I want to make the most out of every one of those times. And so it's, to take a chance on losing a few good meals is a big sacrifice, you know. So I was wondering about the food, and the food really wasn't that. It was different. It was different, but it really wasn't that bad. The only thing that I really had a hard time was occasionally we had choices. Sometimes we didn't. But one night we had a choice, and I made the mistake of choosing fish. Now normally I like fish, but I don't like my fish to watch me while I eat it. And this fish had the head on it. And so I knew after that I wasn't going to be ordering fish anymore. But I turned around and I saw Bob as he finished his fish. Now, this fish had the skeleton in it, all right? And so you had to know how to eat it so you didn't choke yourself. And I turned around just in time to see Bobby as he was sucking off the last piece of meat of what was a perfect skeleton of a fish. He loved the fish. He ordered it every chance that he got. Everything went really well, though. There were moments when you realized, hey, I'm in a different place. I think one of those moments was after we had flown on a prop plane and landed in a very small airport, and we were walking across the tarmac from the airplane to the airport, and there's a young man standing there with a very serious look on his face in full military garb holding an automatic weapon. You know, you don't normally see that at DFW Airport or the Little Rock Airport. It's just little reminders that you're in a different place. But everything went really, really well. There weren't any big problems. In fact, only one person on our team got sick. And it was a person who lives in Ecuador. And it was a young, very healthy, 20-something-year-old young man. He was the only one who got sick. The rest of us, like Monica, who's 81 years old, not a problem. We're thinking that this young man, his name is Andres, who's one of the translators, he lived in the mountains, and we brought him into the jungle. And that may have thrown him off. I don't know. But nobody got sick. No flights were canceled that we were on. Everything went really, really well. This was a great trip for me personally because it was a little bit different. I got a chance to do some teaching. My job was to work with Brad Johnson. Many of you know or remember Brad. He was the pastor at First Baptist Church of Crawfordsville when we went and worked there for a couple of years. He's Travis's cousin. He's now at Tumbling Shoals, and he was our connection with International Church Planters. Brad and I taught a room of about 25 men all week long who are all church leaders, not all pastors, but all church leaders in this part of Ecuador, and they don't have the opportunity to get to a seminary. There's no theological training available to them. And one of the things that International Church Planters is attempting to do is get some theological training out to these pastors who have no access to it. These guys, some of them came a long way. They weren't paid to be there. They weren't helped to be there. They decided to come on their own, and they made the effort to be there. And they sat and they listened. Brad and I taught every afternoon. We prepared in the mornings, taught in the afternoon. We started at 1 o'clock. And we taught for 6 hours straight. He taught an Old Testament survey class for 3 hours, and then I taught a New Testament survey class for 3 hours, Monday through Friday. And we sat in what you and I would consider to be a pretty basic, pretty primitive sanctuary without any air conditioning. We started at 1 and ended at 7, so it was through the heat of the day. That's the room that we were in right there. Hard wooden pews with nothing soft, no pillows. We did have fans, and I want to tell you, when those fans turned on, I learned how to appreciate the fans. And the fact that we're just in and out of the sun. You can see the windows are just open. That's the way the buildings were. And so it was rough to sit for 6 hours. I listened to Brad for 3 hours. He listened to me. They listened to both of us for 6 hours in a row for 5 days. And they were alert. They were awake. They were asking questions. They already knew their Bible. I was impressed with what they had already learned about the Bible. And I noticed, Brad and I both noticed as we taught them, that really they asked the same questions that people in the States would ask. They're dealing with the same issues that we deal with. They have the same struggles and the same concerns about the people that they're ministering to. So it was a great experience. I love working with Brad. That's Ryan in the red shirt, I believe, if I can tell. Ryan is the president of International Church Planters, and he was one of our translators. Let me tell you something. It's one thing to try to communicate to people who understand the language that you're speaking in, but to communicate through a translator can really be a challenge. And it surprised me at how weary you could get teaching in the heat for 3 hours after listening to somebody else, especially working through a translator, trying to listen to questions, answer their questions. But I want to thank you, church. It was a fruitful trip. I believe that we got a lot done. There were some people saved. Bobby was able to lead some people to the Lord. And Wesley and Tammy did a great job. They love children. They work together well with others. Brad and I enjoyed working together with one another. And I'm grateful to International Church Planters for the opportunity to go. That's Ryan. They're translating for me, I believe, on the final evening in the closing ceremony. We, probably about 100 people crammed into this small church. The 25 men that we trained, 35 women that also went through training during the week, a bunch of the kids, people from the church, and so forth. And they gave each of us a little container of chocolate from the jungle and a container of coffee from the jungle. And I'm thinking to myself, maybe this place isn't so bad after all. Chocolate and coffee, that's a pretty great combination. If you can stay in chocolate and coffee, you're doing pretty good. But they were very gracious people, very grateful, and wonderful to work with. But I want to thank you this morning, church. I want to thank you for allowing us to go, for helping us go. Many of you supported us financially. I know that you prayed for us, and I know that you allowed 2 of your staff members to be gone for two Sundays in a row. And I know that is sacrifice. So I appreciate you allowing us to go do that. I appreciate Travis being the 1/3 of our staff taking over for Wesley and for me. I know he always does a great job. I feel good about leaving, knowing that he's in charge, and so I appreciate his work. And I want to thank the Lord for the opportunity to do something that reaches into another culture. I really believe that what Brad and I did with these men over the last week, or the week we were there, will make a difference in a lot of people's lives, potentially for generations. One of the things that Ryan asked me to do, and Brad as well, he said, this is a culture that's not as focused on written materials. If I were to teach a New Testament survey class to you, we would have a lot of notes. I would make you notes, or I would have you keep notes. And a lot of them wrote in little notebooks. But he said it's a very oral culture. A lot of them are illiterate, and they're dealing with people who are illiterate. So they need ways to teach the Bible that can be useful, even though they may not be able to use notes. And so Brad and I both came up with a way to teach just a sweep of the Old Testament and the New Testament that didn't require any notes, that could just be memorized right there on the spot. And what I did is I gave them several pictures that were simple enough that even I could draw them. And I drew them on the board. The first one was a baby, and the phrase that went with it was Jesus, there they are doing it, Jesus' birth was a miracle. The next one was that Jesus' baptism was by John. And it walked through the life of Jesus and through the story of the New Testament in about 8 pictures with 8 sentences. And they immediately memorized them and were able to draw the pictures and say them back. And what Brad did was the same. It was a reminder to me that really how our brains can memorize and learn things so quickly. And I was impressed with this one thought. I'm so used to having notes for everything for years. Writing notes and keeping notes. I've got an office down the hallway that's just loaded with notes. In fact, I'm beginning to wonder what I'm going to do if I have many more notes. I'm going to be squeezed out of my own office. Google. Still, when if I can't think of something or I need to look something up, I pull my phone out and Google it, and all the information that we have just at our fingertips is amazing. But one thing that I'm starting to learn that God has shown me, and this trip just reinforced it, is that we have the ability to do amazing things with our minds. We can remember more than we give ourselves credit for. It's funny when you start talking to somebody about the songs they grew up listening to, how they can remember the lyrics to those songs. Think about all the things that you learn at work that you remember. I know you keep notes, but there are things that you just need on the tip of your brain that you're using day by day. Whatever it is that you do, there are things that you have to remember. There are things that I remember from way back when I was working, when I was 19 and 20 years old. I don't know why we're stuck there, but they are. Numbers tend to stick with me. Words stick with other people. But I want to encourage you to memorize not just Bible verses, but learn God's Word and put it in your hearts. Maybe we've limited this a little too much. We think about putting God's Word in our heart. We think about memorizing a verse, word for word, very, very carefully. And there's nothing wrong with this. I encourage you to do it. But then if we can't remember one word just right, we get frustrated and think that we haven't remembered the verse. But we were teaching these guys to remember the grand sweep of the Bible. What does the Old Testament teach? What does the New Testament teach? There are ways of thinking about that we can remember and think about that don't require exact memorization. It requires remembering ideas, storylines, thoughts, truths, principles. And we can do that. And we're living more and more in a culture that is biblically illiterate. And everyone who's sitting in this room is worth so much to the kingdom of God. You are exceedingly valuable to the kingdom of God today. You don't have to go to Ecuador to find people who don't know the Bible. All we have to do is walk out that door in Camden. And Camden is full of people who don't know the Bible. Do you know the Bible? You may say, well, I don't know it well enough. But if you know it at all, then you need to share what you know with others. Here's an amazing thing that will happen when you begin to share what you know, is it solidifies that knowledge for yourself. It sharpens that knowledge for yourself. Every one of you in here who are teachers know that. The best way to learn something is to teach it to somebody else. I want us to pray together for just a moment. And I want you, as we're praying together, to think about the people that you run into on a regular basis. I want you to think about the people that you run into who may be biblically illiterate. People who don't know the stories of the Bible, don't know the storyline of the Bible. People that maybe you, someone that maybe you can begin to share with and help them understand what is the storyline of the Bible? What is the point of the Bible? Why do people read the Bible? What is it the Bible teaches us about God? Would you bow your heads with me for just a moment? You know,